what buttons to push. And now here we are talking about Colby Covington. Congratulations, Colby. It was smart in a way on first take. Otherwise, we never would. It's not like he has the most, dynamic style even, right? So this is like WWE. UFC is at its best. Mixed martial arts is at its best. And the reason it's so successful, it has the realness of boxing with the showmanship of the WWE, right? Back when I was a kid, it was the WWF, right? And there was something called a heel turn. That's like a good guy character turns bad. Or in this case, to some people, he's good, right? Because he's reflecting their sensibilities. First of all, a few of the things he said when he talks about, like, Black Lives Matter, 93% of the protests are peaceful. The vast, overwhelming majority are peaceful. And by the way, the 7% that are not, they have a very broad definition of what's not, quote-unquote, peaceful. For example, if you block traffic or something like that, or if you respond to police provocation. And even then, a big percentage of that, that wasn't peaceful, is actually outside agitators, extremist right-wing agitators, posing as protesters in order to make the protests look bad. That's the first thing. When he talks about the military, actually, according to the Military Times at the end of August, Biden was preferred by more of the military than Trump. Right? I mean, like, this is what it is. So, like, a lot of his, and when he talks about being woke, yes, of course, there's a minority, but it's a large minority in this country of people who would like people to stay asleep. They'd prefer their athletes sleeping on social issues rather than woke. And it's not that I'm questioning the sincerity of Covington's beliefs. It's that I question how much of it is his understanding that if he plays that up and defines a character, we'll talk about him, and he will build right.
Yes.
He will be noticed. He will be talked about
to build a brand for celebrity,
and he will make more money that way, right?
Yeah.
So those are my thoughts, having seen it.
Well, first of all, I'm not going to disagree with what you're saying. What I will say is that we don't know definitively whether that is the case or not. What we do know is this: Colby Covington is a bad boy. He can fight. He just beat Tyron Woodley this weekend, broke his rib, made him surrender in the 5th round. He lost to Usman, but he gave him a hell of a fight. This is a dude that is on the rise. He's not just talking. He's stepping into the octagon and backing it up. So let's give him respect where it's due on that level. Here's where I take issue, and I think he was wrong about LeBron James when he talked about woke athletes and just addressed LeBron James with the disrespect that he addressed him with. The reason why I think Covington is wrong is because I think that he completely misinterpreted what LeBron James has said. I have not heard LeBron James speak against police officers with a broad brush. I heard him speak against the shooting of Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin. I heard him repeatedly strive to bring attention to the killing of Breonna Taylor, the young lady, the EMT worker that was 26-year-old that got killed in her home when police officers, law enforcement officials came into her home and killed her at age 26. And there was no arrest at the time that LeBron was trying to bring attention to that. I recall those things happening. I recall LeBron James saying a truth that Colby Covington is not qualified to deny. He can't speak for black people when LeBron James says black women, black men, black children. We're terrified because a lot of black folks in America at this particular moment in time are heavily uneasy about the things that we've witnessed transpire in our society. And I think that the protests, the riots, and things of that nature speak to that, although I do believe they're extremists on both sides. Yes, you have right-wing extremists, but you also have left-wing extremists that are going about the business of trying to bring attention to things with their tilt. I do believe in both. That's all I'm saying.
I don't like, we could have this debate another time. I think that the impulse to both sides it all the time is a good one. People want to be fair. But in this case, I think that's a mischaracterization of what's actually happening.
Well, let me say to you, the reason why I disagree with you respectfully about that is because when we're talking about Black Lives Matter, you do have folks that are not necessarily a part of the Black Lives Matters movement, but they've infiltrated.
However,
and they create mayhem.
But those folks,
folks
are extremist right-wing groups in order to frame Black Lives Matter as more militant and violent than the organization is. Now,
we can talk about that. No,
right,
I'm not going to.
Yeah, we can. Right. It's not the time of the. This is what I'll say, Stephen A. About my overarching point.
Yeah, I want to finish, but go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Dennis Rodman used to say, when I was on the Pistons, I grabbed 17 boards a game. I won championships. I got $800,000 a year. When I joined the Bulls and dyed my hair pink and was more outlandish, same 17 boards a game, same championships. Now I made $8 million a year. Covington has always been able to fight. But now that he's being loud in a way he knows will get attention, and he's using names like LeBron James to draw attention to himself, he expects his bank account to get fatter.
That's fair. But what I'm saying is that doesn't mean that his personal feelings that he expressed are inauthentic to him.
Yeah, that's right.
I believe that he believes what he's saying. Now, there might be an upside to it in his mind.
Sure.
Some way that there's some financial benefit from it, but it doesn't mean that he doesn't mean what he was saying.
But you can emphasize and exaggerate the way you feel to draw attention to yourself.
Sure, that's true. That's true. And he obviously has monetary incentive to do so. But in the end, it doesn't mean that he's faking. But it also doesn't mean that he's right. Because in this particular instance, when he was talking about LeBron, I think he was wrong. Having said all of that, here's what I do like about it. Because you talked about the impulse to be fair, which I always have to do. Because to me, when you have an impulse to be fair, that elevates and augments the potency of your argument. Because when people try to sit there and say you're unfair, sometimes they don't even listen to your point because you're so dogged in this one approach that you're not listening to both sides. I don't like to give people that window. I like to make sure they understand I'm listening to exactly what they say, I'm hearing where they're coming from, and then I'm going to address it from that point. But in the case of Colby Covington and what he was saying and the kind of things that he was articulating, understand that this is the good side to it. I've been saying this for weeks. Whether it's painting BLM in the streets, you have to, or anything like that, you have to understand that you doing it is going to give people the right to feel they can do it too. And you say these things is going to give people the right to think they can say what they want to. So it's always important to understand where the other side is coming from. So whatever argument you make, whatever position you're trying to take, whatever issue that you're trying to attack, you do it with the mindset that some people are going to come back and try to do the same thing for their own selfish purposes, and you've got to be ready to combat that.
I sincerely appreciate that, and I agree with your intentions and others' intentions in the media. My point is that there's bad actors can use that impulse in good people to both sides to their advantage. There's something quickly called an Overton window. That means here's what we think is politically and socially acceptable to discuss in the open, right? Bad actors know that if the press will both sides it all the time, they can continually move the window in their direction. Because no matter what they do, people of good intention will come out and say, well, both sides, and now they're incentivized to keep behaving badly.
That's one way to look at it, and I don't disagree. I want to emphasize that. I don't disagree with you. But here's the flip side to it. When you only give one side, when you're dogged in that approach, what happens is that it gives people a license not to hear you. You have to make a decision. We have to make a decision every day to a far more innocuous level. We have to make a decision every day. Do we want to be listened to or do we want to be heard? Do you want to be heard? Anybody can sit up there and listen to you. They can nod their head. They can sit up there and look at you. They say, I hear you, and then go back to doing the same thing. You saw a whole bunch of people when the protests were taking place in the streets throughout America. Oh, we hear you. We understand. We want to understand more, et cetera, et cetera. And then a week or two later, folks go back to doing the same stuff they've always done. But when they truly hear you, when you truly go about the business of trying to ensure that somebody hears you, that's when true impact takes place.
So if we really want
the agenda.
So let's analyze what he said. When Covington says things like, I support law enforcement, et cetera, that falls into the bounds of okay, right? When he starts talking about LeBron is woke.
That's right.
What does that mean? Are we both sides in that?
No.
Is it okay to demonize people who want to wake up to injustice?
No.
And if it is, if people are saying, yes, it is because we feel like it empowers a politically correct culture that chills debate, okay, fine, then make that point. Yeah. But really what it is simply mocking the desire for equality.
Max is right. That's how you look at it. And I don't disagree with you. But what I'm saying is, as an election year approaches, and he says what he said, to me, through my lens, oh, you're speaking to folks who think exactly like that.
Of course,
So
playing to a base, yeah.
as these times that we're living in coming up and there's an election going on or whatever, if you're paying attention, now it's like, excuse me, are you just going to sit idly by? When we talk about NBA athletes and others who weren't even registered to vote, I mean, are you paying attention? Because guess what? Those folks are going to go to the polls. They're going to go to the polls.
When you become the heel,
gotta
it's
go.
as much not only the people who support you, but the people who now hate you and want to see you beat. Muhammad Ali, Floyd Mayweather, and others got paid doing that.
Let me just wrap by saying this. I don't care you're Muslim, Jew, Gentile, black, brown, green, right, left, whatever it is. The personal attack of calling him a spineless coward, I think, is unfair. Yes. LeBron James' philanthropic efforts are unparalleled, Stephen A. You talk about resume. There's a laundry list of things that man has done for the community. At the end of the day, you got to look at somebody's heart, take politics out of it.
Unless you have an agenda. Yeah. You want people to ignore those things about LeBron James.
Unless you want things like this to happen.
Exactly.
The president to call you post-match, because that's what happened. During his post-fight interview, President Donald Trump called Covington to congratulate him. We'll leave it there. When we come back here on First Take, Carson Wentz, who is to blame for the Eagles and their struggles? Is it actually the quarterback or